The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, Season 17, Episode number 102. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. And we got another lovely show planned for you guys today. Hopefully here in a moment we'll be joined by Dave Hellman. He's out at the Senior Bowl. He'll give us some updates from out there and what's going on at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Had an opportunity to talk to Stephen Jones and Will McClay. So we'll hear what he had to say, what those guys had to say, and what Dave's takes on it are. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
We good?
Yeah, I mean, it's here on a holiday, just we're doing some work here. We don't take Groundhog's Day off around here.
We do not. Not all of us, anyway. Some of us do. Don't get me started. I'm sorry, guys.
No, I'm not getting you started.
We're talking about some in-house BS.
Yeah.
So
It's all right.
It's all good. It's all good. We're gonna figure this thing out. Let's start last week I said we're gonna start each show just kind of loosening ourselves up. This is our warm up into the show, but we're gonna go around the table and get some thoughts from you guys on the most important or interesting sports nugget that you've heard in the last week, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Let's start with you, Amber.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, we all know about Tom Brady and his retirement and everything and all the years of success that he's had. And me looking at social media, there's always that vast majority of people that also like to criticize and talk and just haters. And I saw a lot of comments and then just people criticizing Tom Brady. So then that led me to do some investigation a little bit because I didn't know about certain things. People talking about the whole, he's like, well, he's a cheater and this and that. And then I learned about like Spygate thing and Deflategate and all these things that happen that, by the time I started working here in sports, I didn't know anything about that, and I wasn't aware of all that happening. So I'm like, okay, but I mean, then it took me down this rabbit hole where you start, okay, what about Bill Belichick and how real is he? And then what is Bill Belichick without a Tom Brady? Well, we saw that, and then I've just went down that rabbit hole of just kind of learning the history, a little bit of what happened between Tom Brady, the Patriots, Bill Belichick.
That's some interesting stuff, right?
Reputation,
Cell phones.
Cell phones.
Oh, you just sent her down another rabbit hole. She's got to go figure all that out.
Then there's something about Deflategate with Tom Brady, and he texted the ball boys before the game, and it's like, Tom, let me see your phone. He's like, it got smashed. Sorry. My job is to hang on to the football and don't fumble it, but my cell phone got smashed. Sorry.
It happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
when you said cell phone, the thing that popped into my head was the whole text that were recently. That's another story.
Might be.
No, that's going to be. I'm sure one of us will probably have something to say about that. Nick, what's been the big story for you this week?
I mean, the big story, obviously, NFL stuff like that. I mean, I don't shift over really to NBA or anything later. I mean, college basketball is always interesting to me, and I'm sorry. I watched last night's game, and it's funny to me. It's just funny because it's like, if you have,
talking about Texas Tech,
and Texas Tech, and the head coach of Texas, who's now, who was at Texas Tech,
built their program,
and he left it better than where it was, obviously. But it's like he went to Texas. If you're
went to school there.
You went to school there. Yeah. If you're going to go back to your place, you can go to. And I'm sorry, I've been to Lubbock twice, and I haven't spent the night either time. It's there and back. Nobody stays there long, so I don't understand what the big problem is. But whatever, they won. They won the game. That's fine.
They destroyed us.
Yeah, they won. Good. I mean, it was the Super Bowl in Lubbock.
Yeah,
Jesus,
it was.
But but that's kind of their fan base. That's what it is. I mean, what else are you going to get excited about? But I just thought it was kind of petty. But
you're just taking shots at the Lubbock folks.
I've done it before. before. And they bring it back and whatever. But it's just that's if you would have one fan base to get pissed off like that and just
they were mad.
Create it.
Yeah.
That's fine. And they won the game. But I mean, I think he'll sleep fine.
When I saw the coach walking out with a stream of police officers around him, I was like, wow, is it that serious? Like, coaches have left places before. I didn't realize it was that serious. But, hey, I knew going into that game it was an uphill battle. They're a good team on top of the fact that they just hate our coach. So it is what it is.
I wanted to talk about your college basketball team because my college basketball team, you don't want to mess with a winning streak. You don't even talk.
Don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about it. We don't know what that's like.
Rolling.
But
right.
They won?
Right. 7 in a row.
Oh, yeah, they're good at basketball, but not football.
Not true. Not true. A good football team. I swept the floor. This year. I beat Derek's
We're not
going
to ever hear
Vicky's
the end
team,
of this.
and Rob's team, and Dave's team.
Yeah.
I beat them.
Yeah. It was me. All me.
Hey.
Is there a trophy upstairs for that?
There might be.
Hey, as soon as we make this transition to the SEC, there will be. Trust me, we'll do something. We'll have some fun.
You
with
gotta
that.
have something with that.
A
Yeah,
belt.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun with that
That'd be
for
funny.
sure.
All right, what do you think, Derek? What's your sports story?
It's the story everybody in the NFL is talking about.
Yeah.
It's Brian Flores and what's happening with him in the NFL. And actually, I wanted to read this quote from Brian Flores talking about the suit against the NFL. He said, "God has gifted me with a special talent to coach the game of football, but the need for change is bigger than my personal goals. In making the decision to file the class action complaint today, I understand that I may be risking coaching the game that I love, and that has done so much for my family and me. My sincere hope is that by standing up against systemic racism in the NFL, others will join me to ensure that positive change is made for generations to come." The reason why I wanted to read that is because I just wanted to say, I really wanted to just salute Brian Flores, mainly because, and I'll tell you like this morning I saw on television, there were a number of television stations where they were talking about fair hiring practices. I was driving into work. I jumped around a couple different radio stations. Both were talking about hiring practices. And the interesting thing about this topic is this is not just an NFL issue. This is an issue that affects our entire workforce in America. This is not just about the NFL. And so the way I look at this is, regardless of what happens in the court case, all the merits of that, they'll figure all that out in court. What I love about this is Brian Flores has reignited the conversation around fair hiring practices and making sure that everybody gets fair opportunity, whether that be people of color, whether that be women. Like, everybody should have a fair shot in this job market, and not just in the ability to get jobs, but the ability to get higher jobs, to get leadership type roles and leadership type positions. And so I think there's no better way we could have started Black History Month than him doing something like this, because this is what Black History Month is all about. It's all those pioneers that continue to relentlessly and even put themselves and their own careers in jeopardy. Yeah. They continue to fight the fight to say, this is not just. We need better hiring practices, and we're willing to put their own careers on the line. And so I salute Brian Flores for doing that. And hopefully this conversation continues, and hopefully we find some better solutions, because right now I don't know that what they have in place is necessarily working.
Well said. I mean, you're right. And, that situation, I talked to you about this yesterday, it kind of hits close to home, and we don't have to go through the whole story. But, if just Google Abar Rouse. Mm-hmm. Abar Rouse is somebody that I knew when I was in college. He was a basketball coach, a young GA at my college at Midwestern State, and he ended up going to Baylor, and he ended up being the whistleblower for what happened with Dave Bliss and what that whole situation there, and he never got a job again. And the coaches said that would never happen, and he did the right thing. Abar Rouse, if you don't know him, you should Google him and look him up in his story. I think he's like a PE teacher right now, when he should have been coaching college basketball. Yeah. But he did the right thing, and hopefully it doesn't happen like that for Brian Flores and other people that stand up and do what the right thing is.
Well, we know of him. What we know is Brian Flores is a good coach. What he did in Miami, I think that's a good coach, being able to build that program to the point where they were. They didn't make the playoffs, but they were a very competitive team, extremely competitive team.
I don't know what your thought is on this, but I've said this earlier. If Harbaugh leaves Michigan, if I'm Michigan, I'm signing.
Making that phone call
right now.
Yeah.
Because you think about how many parents would say, I want my son to play for him because he's going to do the right thing. He's going to take care of him. He's going to stand up for people.
Yeah.
And not, it's not like Michigan's not a great job. Or any job that's open like that, I think college is the way to go because people have the choice to go and play for you.
Yep, I agree with that. All right, we are joined right now by Mr. Dave Hellman out there in Mobile, Alabama. Dave, what's up, man?
I'll tell you what's up, man. Look, I mean, we love our jobs, right? I'm definitely not complaining, but this is the side of the gig that they don't glamorize. I am standing in the rain at Hancock Whitney Stadium, and I'm bird dogging the Joneses, the Cowboys front office, the Jones family. Actually, I mean, Stephen Jones is here. Obviously, we had a chance to speak with him yesterday, but just to take you behind the scenes of what this job is like, you get here. You coordinate with the people you need to coordinate with. Like, hey, we're going to be able to talk to Steven today. We're going to get Will. That would be great. We can, we'll set ourselves up for a nice week or two of content. We'll check in with them for the first time since the season ended. So you get all that done. You go back and you write your stories, and you're like, wow, that was a full and fulfilling and productive day. And now I'm kind of done, and I can take a deep breath and, go to dinner. And then you get a text from a reporter friend that's like, Jerry Jones is holding court in the bar downtown. You should probably be here. And I'm like, oh, my God, I didn't know Jerry was here, too. So Jerry's here, and so I'm bird dogging the front office. We call it playing defense. I'm just trying to make sure Jerry Jones isn't giving an interview that I'm not part of.
It's why we sent you, Dave.
Yeah. So, you get to cover a lot of cool events. You get to meet a lot of people, but every now and then you have to stand in the rain and spy on people. It's great.
Yeah, it's the hard part of the job. It's what you were meant for, Dave. You're good at it.
You know what? I'm ready for it. I get some kind of sick thrill out of this. I have to be honest. So.
All right. So going back to your time with Steven and Will, give me a couple things that were intriguing that you may have heard from them during the interview that you conducted earlier this week.
It's fun. It's interesting. I was talking to a reporter friend of mine who's down here about this last night. Is like. I feel like it's a unique year where there's less going on with the Cowboys than in a typical year, in my opinion. There's just no looming question like a Dak contract extension or like a franchise tag stare down. We don't have that domineering storyline yet, but I actually wrote a story about this morning. I don't know if it's on the site yet.
Not yet.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's fine, but because it's going, I think it's
preview
the gist I'm trying to get at is, I think we're setting up for an interesting couple of months here because the Cowboys have some decisions to make that are gonna shake things up, and that's one thing Steven touched on yesterday when I talked to him is they're $20 million over the cap right now, and they obviously have a bunch of key free agents that they would probably like to try to re-sign. So how do they get under the cap? How do they find money for those guys? Who do they try to find money for? Obviously, you can restructure Dak's deal pretty easily, but other than that, you kind of got to make some interesting decisions when you look at should we restructure a Zeke contract? Should we restructure an offensive lineman's contract? A lot of talk about Amari Cooper. So I think my main takeaway right now is that it's very quiet in Cowboy world right now, and I don't know. For some reason, I just feel like that feels ominous to me.
Yeah, it does. And I think I'll mention Nick and I were talking off the air about just looking at the salary cap. And we're going to get into that next week. Next week, a topic of our show is going to be around free agency and even talking a little bit about some of the guys that are under contract. But there are some significant contract savings the Cowboys could make if they made some decisions to part with some veterans, which is going to make for really interesting conversation for the Cowboys to try to figure out what's worth it. Do you keep the guy and continue to pay him the money, or do you let him go? And you might have some dead money, but the amount of money that you save could be significant in being able to give you more cap relief.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I haven't heard anything. This is really just more connecting tea leaves. But again, a guy like Amari Cooper, a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, you sit there and you look at it and you're like, I'm not saying this is a good idea, but I could see how that winds up being a conversation that maybe you move on from those guys. So I just think, I don't know. I think we could be setting up for an eventful March one way or the other, whether the Cowboys restructure their current roster or even if it's kind of boring, like you look at the guys on this team that don't have deals right now, like Randy Gregory, Dalton Schultz, Jaron Kearse. I mean, there's going to be some attrition there. So, I think it kind of dawned on me while I was talking to Steven yesterday. I was like, okay, it feels kind of boring right now, but I have a feeling it's going to be kind of dramatic by February or March.
Yeah.
Dave, we talked about Kellen Moore, and he's still in the process right now of everything. He's with the interviewing with the Dolphins, which I don't know. The Dolphins may have other things that they're worried about right now too, but
kind of busy.
But did you get the sense that Steven was like, yeah, I mean, Kellen, we love for him to come back, but if he doesn't, we'll be all right. I mean, that's what it kind of sounded like when he was talking to you.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it sounded like to me. And there was like a Freudian moment where I asked him about like the uncertainty with Kellen, and he basically was like, well, that's what's so big about Dan coming back. And then he kind of cut himself off and was like, yeah, but like we really love Kellen. And I was like, okay, you sound like you were a lot more worried about one of these guys.
Right.
And then the other, like, again, going behind the scenes, like I kind of kicked myself last night because I asked him about, do you work on a contingency plan? If Kellen leaves, like how much are you stressed about that? And he basically, he said, he was like, we're not worried about that because Mike McCarthy's background is all offense and he's got play calling history. And like in the moment, it didn't register that much with me. And then later I was like, I should have asked him if he was talking about Mike calling plays.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that's what he was hinting at, but it didn't dawn on me to just ask the question directly. So I apologize for that, but it is.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Dave, because like usually that is like 10 people there and everyone's trying to fight to get a question in. When you're the one that's asking all of them, like you're trying to be a one shot ahead of it, and you're like, okay. And sometimes that happens when you're thinking of your next question, and then they're like, yeah, and then and then they say, and then I might retire, and you're like.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
I mean, this is.
Hey, Jeremy Adelon, he was just joking. He doesn't really mean that. Go ahead, finish.
This is as bare bones the Senior Bowl as I can remember. I mean, yeah, you're right, Nick. Jory Epstein, our friend from USA Today, is the only other Cowboy reporter that's here. So her and I just went back and forth with Steven for like 20 minutes, and I was like, I think I got everything, but I wouldn't mind it if there were like 2 or 3 other reporters here who could maybe fill in some gaps that I forgot about.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely an implication like that. That's where his brain went when he was asked about Kellen Moore not being here. It's like, well, Mike's got a background with that. So it does make me wonder if Kellen is to leave. And I mean, Jerry said last week he's optimistic Kellen's not going anywhere. But if he does, I don't know. I just sort of get the sense that their contingency plan might just be to handle it in-house.
But, that's also the part that kind of worries me a little bit about that whole thing is, yeah, Mike has that experience, and so as the head coach, why didn't he have more of an imprint on, or did he have an imprint and it just didn't work on helping this offense get out of the trash can? Like they were struggling in the second half of the year, and Kellen couldn't seem to figure it out. And I don't know if Mike was helping and they still couldn't get out, or if Mike really wasn't helping enough. Either way, that seems problematic for a guy that has all that experience as a play caller, right?
I don't remember if I said it on this show, but I spent a lot of the second half of the season expecting for a story to break about Mike injecting himself into the play calling situation or just outright taking over play calling duties. Like, I just had this like lingering feeling. I was like, I'm going to wake up one of these Sunday mornings and there's going to be a Schefter report about Mike McCarthy taking over play calling duties, but it never happened. So. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, given the struggles that we saw consistently for 9 weeks, it seemed like there was more that Mike could have done. And I wonder if that's just the balancing act of what Kellen's accomplished here and how highly the front office thinks of him. I don't get the sense that there's any friction there, but I did think that was kind of curious. I agree with you.
All right, Dave, we're going to let you go, man. You keep holding down the fort there. I know it's raining. Hopefully you guys can get back before the Snowmageddon here in Dallas. But if not, we will see you in a few days when you get back, and we'll be checking out all your work on DallasCowboys.com.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Keep your fingers crossed that my 7:30 flight doesn't get canceled, please.
All right, let's see what we can do, and be careful when you get in tonight. It might already be coming down a little bit, so I just need you guys to be really, really careful, all right?
Will do. Thanks, man.
All right, we'll see y'all later.
Bye, Dave.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we got the Break Awards. This is going to be our shot at giving accolades to players that should deserve it and some that maybe shouldn't have, that don't want these awards, but we're going to give them out anyway. So we'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
At AT&T, everyone, new and existing customers, get our best deals on every smartphone. Why? Because you deserve it. We're turning your living room into your office and your gym. We're teaching Grandma how to video call and teaching her again.
It's the button on your left, Nana. Okay, your other left.
It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving everyone, new and existing customers, our best deals with every unlimited plan on every smartphone, even the latest ones.
AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Restrictions and exceptions may apply.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at stetson.com/cowboys.
Back to the break.
Whether you're watching from home or cheering in the stands with Essilor lenses, you'll see every exciting play. Book an appointment at your local Essilor experts and find the perfect Essilor lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
Welcome back. Second segment of the break, live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, and welcome to the 2021 season Break Awards. We are now going to go through a list of players and moments that we want to highlight, and we're going to start first with, what do you guys think was the best win of 2021 season for the Cowboys?
Well, for me, I will say week 2 against the Chargers. I think that was the best win. I think that's where we saw a lot of things kind of happen. We saw them figure out that what Micah Parsons can really do, and I think that changed the whole defense. I think it was a great win. It was a last-second victory. It was a fun atmosphere with Cowboy fans there. Tony Pollard had a great day doing some things. We saw the aggressiveness of the punt. It was funny about the punt block that they almost blocked it, and they called it a penalty. And what's Bones doing? He's trying, and they ended up blocking 4 punts that year. And so it was just kind of an interesting day. But when you look back and see how things, especially with Micah Parsons, and I think that was their best win, because you can't go 0-2 to start the season, and they made sure that they didn't.
All right, Amber.
That's the same one I had, but then another one that I was thinking about was that at the time, and we know the Patriots didn't have a good season, but at the time we were sitting here, what are they going to do against Bill Belichick? This and that, how can they do that? And the fact that they went out there and won that game, I think it was a big win for the Cowboys at the time.
And I know Dave, we ranked all 12 of our wins, and I know Dave's answer to that is the Patriots as well.
Yeah, and actually that's what I was going to say as well. Just I look at the quality of that team. I know they weren't as good as we expect the Patriots to be the years that they've been top of the league, but they were a good team this year, and they were doing that with a quarterback that just, he wasn't the leader of what they did, but he fit in the system. It reminded me so much of what Tom Brady was his first year as well. Like, he'd make a throw or two a game, but really it was relying on the defense, it was relying on the running game, And the Cowboys had to gut out that win. They had to figure that out. Sure. And to be honest with you, that was the last time we saw this Cowboys offense in that form. Like after that game, yeah, they did it against some poor teams, but we didn't really see that Cowboys team after that game. But that game, I thought they played a game where they didn't even play their best football, but they figured out a way to win against a really good team. And that was really the last time we saw them do that this season. So for me, that was the win that was the best one for the season.
Vikings would have been as close to the Vikings going up there and winning in that atmosphere without Dak coming back the way they did. That was another good one.
All right, let's move on. MVP of the team. Who was the most valuable player for this team?
Micah. I mean, is there another answer to that? I think not. So Micah Parsons, I don't think there's anything else needed to be said or explained for that guy.
Well, let me tell you, it's Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's changed the whole defense, and that's why I think that Chargers game was the one, because that's the one we found out. Oh, he can rush the passer too, you know, and he's outstanding, and he just brings so much attitude, and I said it to you at one point. I thought they could win. I thought they could win it all. I really did. And I thought if Micah Parsons is healthy, this team has a chance, and they did have a chance. I mean, they lost to a team that played better that day. I don't know if they are better. They played better. And but I think Micah Parsons is the reason that the defense was able to play the way they did.
When you look at Micah Parsons, and in his rookie year, he was being touted as a possible defensive player of the year. Maybe still gets it, I don't know, but possible defensive player of the year across the entire league, veterans included. When is the last time you remember Dallas having a player that good? I mean, when you stack him up against other guys around the league, he's right up there at the top, and he's that caliber player. Like, when is the last time we had that kind of player on this team?
You're looking at me like, not since I've been there.
I mean, you've been here way.
You can make the argument for offensive line like a Zach Martin. I guess I want to get
difference makers, though.
Yeah, I want to get to that guy that changes games. When's the last time they had that kind of guy?
I think the last time they've had that kind of guy is DeMarcus Ware. And you can make the case that what Parsons did is, Parsons had a better rookie year. Yeah. I know that. And so, and one of the things about DeMarcus that always kind of, that we always talked about was that some of his sacks weren't always at the time where, that really changed the game to go win the game and stuff like that. But, he still had more than anybody that's ever played for the Cowboys. So,
that matters.
It does, and he was great. And he was that kind of player, and lived at the Pro Bowl every year. And so, I think he's the closest thing. And then that's before anything before that. Not since I was here, but I could say even back in the '90s, I don't think there was a defensive player other than Deion.
Yeah,
because Deion definitely changed it. But the team was kind of going downhill at that point.
And that's so special. I think the reason why I asked that question is because that is a special thing to have that caliber of player. Because if you use them the right way, there's so many other things you can do based off that player and how much attention other teams will have to pay to that player. And it just requires someone who's creative enough to know how to use them.
Yeah.
Now, for a player like that, real quick, and since I've been here, you start seeing every year how the team looks different and this and that. And then you talk about player, what's the name for like wear and tear? Or how do you say that for a player?
Wear and tear, it works.
Wear and tear.
Yeah.
So for a player like that, I know that was his first year and everything, but given as much as he's done and as aggressive of a player that he is and all that for that position and what he's doing, what would be like the player lifespan for someone like him, where you want to be able to at least get further than the first playoff game within his time here, that we don't go through another team, restructuring the team, and then now you lost another amazing player. And I know he's super young, but
I don't know that there's a standard, because that's the thing about the NFL. It takes one injury to change everything for any player, right? I would guess right now the Cowboys probably look at this guy and say, we could have him, if he keeps playing like this, we could have him playing here 10, 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more, but 10, 12 years, I would think they probably feel pretty good about something like that if he continues to produce and doesn't have any major injuries. 10, 12 years seems about what I would think, at least. That's the way I look at it. He's a 10 to 12 year kind of guy that'll be here and be really effective during that time.
Yeah. And that's about right. I mean, it's hard to predict anything other than that. And you don't even like to do that, to go that far. But yeah, I mean, he's
Can you
that
see
good.
him getting better than what he's shown you? Because I feel like he's shown you so much, so you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
But you feel like there's a big chunk of how much more he can do.
I do. I believe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe it too. And the weird thing about Micah is that the reason why the Cowboys were able to get him at 12 and that nobody really knew he was a pass rusher is because he didn't play football the year before at Penn State. The weird thing to me is that knowing a little bit that we know of Micah, I am shocked to hell that he didn't play that season because he loves football so much that it's just surprising that he opted out of that season.
Now, part of that, at least what I've understood about that situation, was he opted out at the time when, or he decided he wasn't going to play at a time when they were thinking the Big 10 was not going to play. And at that point, I think there may have been some gray area there of, I'm not playing, and then the Big Ten's going to play, and so he decided not to come back. That's what I've heard. I don't know that as a fact, but I've heard some of that. It wasn't just a simple, I'm not going to play football. My team's playing, but I'm not going to play. I think there was some of that involved there.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I think he can get better because I think he's going to keep studying.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish Sean Lee. I wish they could have played 1 year together. You know, just 1 year, just because. I think Sean, if a guy that with an athletic ability like that can get the work ethic and leadership and hunger for the game like Sean Lee had.
But what I've heard of him is that he's doing that, so I wouldn't be surprised if he hasn't or will plan to sit down with Sean Lee at some point and talk to him. He did it with DeMarcus Ware. He did it with Tank. He's seeking out people.
He comes here.
He's
So
seeking out people. Yeah, he's seeking out people to get advice from and to learn more about what he's doing. There was that report the week before he was playing the San Diego game where he went and sat with DeMarcus Ware and just started trying to pick his brain. Playing defensive end, what do I need to know? I mean, what are the things you would tell me, right? So I think he's that kind of player. Like you said, he loves football. And so for me, I look at it and say, he was great this year, but he certainly can grow because anybody. You take your first time you do it. I don't care how good you are at it. There's so much you learn. And if you apply all the things you learn, that just tells you that's his floor. Right now, his ceiling can be wherever. We don't know how much better this guy can be, but I suspect it's going to be better because he's going to actually learn things.
My brain can't really even begin to process what that can look like. After seeing what we saw from him this year, I'm just like, oh my God, what else? What more can he do? He's just amazing.
All right, we're going to move on. Let's get. Did you have something, Nick?
I would say my next guy on most valuable player, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but I would throw Zeke into the conversation a little bit.
Really?
Because of the term most valuable player. When he is playing at his high level, this team was way better. When he suffered the injury and couldn't do the same things, the offense didn't do as well. And I think the value of a running back, a healthy top-tier running back, is valuable for this team, and I don't think they had it down the second part of the season.
Here's the question I think a lot of people out there listening right now would probably have, which is, is that also a reflection of the fact in the second half they didn't use Tony Pollard more, and if they would have still seen similar type of production?
Maybe.
And so then it becomes a situation of it may have not been necessarily Zeke as much as they needed to put the best running back in the moment in at the beginning of the season. Maybe that was Zeke. Toward the second of the half of the year when Zeke was injured, maybe that was Pollard, and they should have done more with him.
Remember, Pollard got hurt for a few games.
True,
too,
he did.
A pretty tough injury. So, but I
think those last two games to get it was six carries in those two games, that's not.
I think a running back that can play at a top level, and I'm not sure that that's Zeke anymore. I don't know, but that they missed that, and they need that, and Dak needs it.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's jump into the offensive player of the year. Who's the offensive player of the year for this team? I guess, are you saying Zeke?
No, I mean, no, because that's he didn't do it the second half of the year. But MVP and player of the year are different.
Yep.
Player of the year, best player,
offensive player of the year.
I'm just gonna go with the cop out.
Well, it's the right answer though.
And Zach.
No, that wasn't gonna be my answer.
What? Zach Martin.
What was
What's the right answer? I went with the first team All-Pro. I don't know what you've got, but I went with first team All-Pro. What's your answer?
You're probably right. If you just, I was going to say Dak, just because, again, here's the thing about Dak.
Undefeated when he didn't play.
And here's the thing about Dak. Dak had his moments when things weren't going well. And by the way, that was his whole offense that they fell off. But even with all of that, they still were right up there at the top of the league when it came to most of the offensive statistics. And I know statistics are still just statistics, but they do matter. Like they have their place in this whole conversation. And so if you're looking at this offense and you're trying to identify one player that you think had an outstanding year, you're right. It's always probably Zach Martin, because Zach Martin is just so great at what he does. But the problem is, when Zach Martin has a great game, it really doesn't matter if the other four guys on that offensive line don't. So his impact on the game is kind of minimized a bit just because of the nature of the position he plays. Dak, on the other hand, every problem is going to be magnified because he touches the ball almost every single play.
I have a small sample size on that, but Dak missed the game against Minnesota. They figured it out late, and they were able to beat an average team. On the
average team.
An average team.
Which, by the way, this year they were beating average teams, and they were beating average teams pretty good, most of them.
Zach missed the game against Tampa Bay, and whether it was just that or other reasons, they chose not to even run the ball up the middle of the field, and I think it hurt them when they got down in the red zone too.
But they played a better game, right? Overall, would you say they played a better game against Tampa or a better game against Minnesota?
Minnesota, because they won. They won.
You know where I'm going, though. Come on, let's be honest.
But they won, and the thing
is
that they were handicapped in the middle of the field, and I think
that was also because of the matchup, though, right?
Well,
you're playing Vita Vea
with Connor Williams and Connor McGovern.
Right.
I mean, with Zach Martin, I'm not afraid of anybody.
Yeah, no, that's my point. I guess we're making the same point.
You didn't have
Vita Vea. Vita Vea was not playing for the Minnesota Vikings.
Break the tie.
Right?
I'm going with Zach. He went with Dak.
I am not picking that.
I knew you're not going to pick that.
No. I mean, the initial when you mentioned this,
yeah,
the initial thought was Zach Martin, and I kept going back. I'm like, okay, who else? But there's really nobody else that I would feel like picking, because you can say, okay, the position minimized or whatever, but at the same time, out of the whole offense, he's the only player that was the most consistent throughout the whole year. He had his moments, but overall, his mistakes were very, very minimal, and you cannot say that about any other player on the roster.
Yeah,
that's true.
So Zach Martin, sorry.
All right, let's fly through this next one here.
All right. Well, Defensive Player of the Year, and I'm going to change it. Defensive Player of the Year cannot be the same as your MVP.
Well,
so
I didn't get to say my MVP, but
yeah,
I thought it was Mike. You said Micah.
That was
MVP.
No, what was the
Micah?
You said MVP. You said Micah.
You said who else could it be? An Offensive Player of the Year? Zach.
Yeah.
So now defense.
But you said Micah too.
Yeah. Both of y'all said Micah for Defensive
MVP.
Player of the Year. I mean, for MVP. I'm sorry.
And then offensive.
I think we all agree with that.
And now Defensive Player of the Year. You said
it can't be your MVP. So who is your Defensive Player of the Year?
Diggs. He broke records. He was outstanding. I don't care what those other websites say. He took the ball away. He was a weapon because he neutralized or took away the other team's weapon.
Do you think that was also part of the problem for this team in the second half of the year, where those started to slow a bit? They weren't getting the same number of turnovers they got earlier in the year. As much as we give the offense a lot of, the offense obviously wasn't playing at its best, but the defense also wasn't turning it over as much in the second half as they were in the first half, right?
Yeah. They got one in the playoffs. I mean, Anthony Brown got a pick. I mean, they got one. And if they would have had two, which they almost did with that weird play with Kittle, they might have won the game. So, I mean, they one turnover is not enough, especially with the offense is struggling. Yeah. But I think Diggs was the best player other than Micah.
Yeah, but other than Diggs, another guy would be Randy Gregory. Yeah, and I think that, I absolutely don't believe that the defense would have been as successful, not even Diggs or Micah without Randy Gregory in the mix. And especially during the time that DeMarcus Lawrence was out, I mean, it was all Randy, I feel like. So, yes, Micah Parsons can pressure and all that, but at the same time, he needs other players around him that can help him. And I think that Randy Gregory also had his fair share of mistakes and little anger rages here and there. But overall, I think he was a great player, and he contributed a lot more than what you think he did.
All right, we're going to go and take our first break. Our final break, I'm sorry. When we come back, we're going to talk about the newcomer of the year that is not a rookie, and also our unsung hero. We'll do that when we come right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Hi, I'm Clint Tillison with...
And I'm Jay Novacek, and we're both with...
United Ag and Turf, the official tractor provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
So, if you need a tractor to bale some hay, a mower to cut some grass, or a gator to get some chores done...
Get a John Deere at United Ag and Turf.
And then, let's get to work.
Hey, Jay, that's my line.
Well, not today.
Get to work with a John Deere tractor package that's just right for you and your budget. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
At AT&T, everyone, new and existing customers, get our best deals on every smartphone. Why? Because you deserve it. For turning your living room into your office and your gym. For teaching grandma how to video call and teaching her again.
It's the button on your left, Nana. Okay, your other left.
It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving everyone, new and existing customers, our best deals with every unlimited plan on every smartphone, even the latest ones.
AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Restrictions and exceptions may apply.
New Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. You deserve it.
I do deserve that.
You deserve decadent flavor without sugar. And a day at the beach without sand getting everywhere. And a relaxing bath that your children don't interrupt.
I deserve all that?
It's really just a visual metaphor for Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. Everything you want, nothing you don't.
A visual metaphor on the radio. I do deserve that.
Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. The zero you deserve is finally here.
Back to the break.
April 2nd and April 3rd, 2-day event is WrestleMania. The superstars of WWE come to AT&T Stadium. So in 2022, coming up here, April 2nd, April 3rd, 2 days. You going? WrestleMania?
I might. I'm trying to see if I can work out a deal to get Roman Reigns to come by and hang out. And if I can do that, then I'll try to get a suite. And we will invite everybody from our group except for Amber.
All right, well, if you can't do that, if you're not bougie enough to get a suite, go to SeatGeek.com and get your tickets.
What was that? You got what?
Bad Bunny.
Oh, you already switched over.
You got Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny's
I'll take
your new-
both. It's okay. I can meet both of them and interview them, whatever.
We're trying to work that out, though. I want to get you connected with Bad Bunny so you can get that interview. Like, that's your interview. Like, all media people got that interview they really want. I think
Or at
that's
least a
Amber's
picture.
interview.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't know how I would react.
Wasn't Bad Bunny in a Royal Rumble this week?
Yes, he
was, yeah.
He's wrestling.
He's been very involved in WrestleMania, so yeah.
So maybe we'll get that interview, and you'll talk to him, and the rest of everybody else will talk to Roman Reigns.
Yeah. and Bad Bunny's doing a concert, right? In November or September or something?
September 9.
All right. So, what's going to happen? He's going to, run out, and he's going to have a match, or something's going to happen at WrestleMania, and it's going to be real exciting and all that. And then in between the matches, it's going to say up at the big board, Bad Bunny comes to town September 9th. Get your tickets now. Yeah.
He'll come out. Bad Bunny, babe. That's his thing.
I don't
You
know.
guys
What? I didn't hear. What?
That's what he does.
Oh, okay. I had
Bad
no
Bunny,
idea.
babe.
Okay. All right. I feel old, but okay. I got you.
I need to update you guys.
You do. You need to get me right. All right, let's jump back into this. We're doing the break awards. We've already talked about the best win, the MVP, the offensive player of the year, the defensive player of the year. Next question, or the next category, is newcomer of the year. That is a non-rookie. Newcomer of the year. That would be a free agent. Can't be a draft pick.
J-Ron.
Okay. J-Ron Curse. Safety.
I mean, yeah, and he's a lot bigger and Dave is not here to jump on this, but, we've been complaining about safety forever.
Mm-hmm.
And, Dave and I have been very upset about it for years. And they didn't draft a safety. Wait, trying to think who were the draft class.
They got Mukwamu, yeah.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah. So the fact that they were able to do it with a free agent guy that wasn't anyone with a big name, that they didn't have to break the bank or anything. It was one of the guys that initially is like, here we go again. Okay, let's hope he can hold up or whatever, do enough. And he came in here, and maybe it was because of Dan Quinn and his magic to develop players and all that. But the fact that he was as effective as he was. And the thing is, he was one of those quiet guys, that you watch the game and he's not really someone that stands out and you're putting out a graphic like Jaron Curtis. Wow. No, he's like silently done his job and really, really well. So he definitely impressed me.
Yeah, led the team in tackles. I mean, I'd like to say someone else, like maybe the punter. I thought Brian Anger was outstanding. Yeah. But to come in like in a position of need and then to do it in a way of it was kind of unique. They put him in different spots and he learned it and he came in here with trusting Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn trusted him. And whether or not Curse is here next year, I think that type of player is going to maybe help a little bit in free agency when they sign some guys that you haven't heard of and you're like, well, yeah, I don't know much about him, but I didn't know much about Curse either, and so I think J-Ron's the answer.
Let me ask you this: I know there was a lot made about the other safeties as well. You had Hooker and you had J-Ron Casey. Casey. Looking at those two guys, what were your thoughts on how they played? Obviously, J-Ron Curse is the one I think that really, really popped. But the other two I thought contributed different good things at moments throughout the season. What were your thoughts with those two safeties?
Both pretty good. I think that when you come back from an Achilles injury, and Barry Church will be a guy that can tell you that too, is that you're coming back and you're getting yourself back going again, and you're doing most of the things you can do. But I think the second year they'll be even better, and I think the ceiling is higher for Malik Hooker than Casey. But I don't know if you sign both of them, but I think either one that you sign would probably be pretty good. I'd like to keep Curse. I just don't see it though.
Yeah, for those two other guys, and I might be completely wrong about this, but I just have a feeling that had the defense, everybody else on defense not been as good, those two players would have struggled a lot more, and it would have shown to the point where we would be criticizing them a lot more and talking about the safety position. As opposed to Curse, that to me, he's a player that what I saw from him, he can stand on his own and he can kind of do his thing. He's not going to be going to the Pro Bowl type of player, but he's going to do enough for you that I would feel like, oh yeah, I definitely want him back because you need those players that is not a superstar. But for those two other guys, they did good. They did a good enough job, but had the defense not been as good, I just don't know if they would have been okay for the Cowboys.
You mentioned Barry Church. I think he is a good comparable player when you talk about what J-Ron Curse is. Like you said, he's not a guy that necessarily is going to be at the top of the league. Everybody's going to be talking about him. He's going to Pro Bowls every year. But he's certainly a guy that you ask the people in the building, they're like, that's a guy we really want and really need. Mm-hmm. Like he adds something to this defense. He has a good role for this defense. And I'm hopeful, Nick, that they will figure out a way to be able to keep him. I don't know what that looks like. I hope Dan Quinn can help in that because he's had a career before this and it wasn't nearly as good as what it was with Quinn. And so I think sometimes players are willing to say, hey, I think I can do more with this guy if you can get him a fair offer. Mm-hmm. It might not be the best offer, but if it's a fair offer, I think sometimes guys are willing to do that, and we'll see where it all pans out.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to
the Cowboys like signing their own people. So
yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
I mean, you never know.
At least, and I actually like that. You know what you got. I'd rather take a guy, especially a guy that I think's pretty good. I'd rather keep him than go back to the well, and you don't really know how a guy's going to fit. You don't really know what his personality is like, all those other things that you know about the guy that's already in your building. Yeah. All right, let's go to unsung hero. Who would be the unsung hero for this team?
I struggle with that one.
Really?
Yeah.
You want me to give you mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrence Steele was mine. I think he's a guy that came in and going into the season, I'll speak for myself, I didn't think he was a very good player and was forced back into action after having to play so much last year and played, I thought, much better than he played last year. It doesn't mean he was perfect. That means he played much better. And here was the most interesting part. When Lyle Collins came back and became the right tackle again, I didn't really see a difference. Like, for me, Terrence Steele, for the amount of money he's making, was every bit as good as Lyle Collins. And maybe there were things the coaches saw that would dispute that. But from what I saw, they look like comparable players to me. That means Terrence Steele in his second year is getting better. And so that's a guy for me that's an unsung hero that everybody doesn't give as much credit as I think they should.
I had him as my biggest surprise because he definitely surprised me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next
We might not get to it, but yeah, it's on there.
Yeah.
But to me, he was the biggest surprise just because we criticized him so much last year.
And rightfully so.
Yes.
He didn't play well last year.
Yes, and I was one of the ones that was like, who is this guy? And they need to get him out of there or whatever. And yeah, this year he came in, and the fact that they did not struggle on that side, or it was to the point where we weren't commenting on it. And as soon as they made the change and moved Lyle Collins back into the mix and all that, you saw that was kind of the downfall for the whole offensive line, and when things kind of started changing a whole lot for the struggles that they have had last year. But for unsung hero, I keep going. I can't think of a guy that was like all throughout the year like fully done something. Like, there are guys here and there. Like, I want to think of, okay, a player like Dalton Schultz, but then at the same time, there are areas that he very much lacked in, and he wasn't always great. So, do you have your thought on unsung hero?
That's probably, I was thinking Schultz. I was thinking Anger. That's where Anger would go in there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Dorrance Armstrong is another one too.
Yeah.
But I wanted Anger as the best free agent, but I thought it was Curse.
I'll give you guys another one I think is Cedric Wilson, because Cedric Wilson showed up and had some games for you that you really needed him to have. That doesn't mean he's perfect. Like, again, he is not a number one receiver, maybe not even a number two receiver, but there were moments when he had to step in and play the number three receiver role, and he did a pretty good job with it, and sometimes ended up being the receiver that made most of the plays in the game that you needed. And so, again, I just think based upon what he was and the role they were asking him to play, I thought he was heroic for this team at times this season. So I would put him in that category as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Biggest disappointment. What was the biggest disappointment of this season, outside of the fact that they got to the playoffs and lost in the first round?
I answered this yesterday on a story we put on there, and I get it that he's in the Pro Bowl. But I was disappointed in the way that I thought CD was going to take even a bigger jump than he did. His numbers were pretty good, but after training camp, I thought, man, he was about to just take off. I mean, he was making a highlight catch every single day, and I don't think he made hardly anything like that during the season. And it wasn't like he was going up against someone bad. He was going up against Trayvon Diggs, but I just thought he was going to take off to a level that it was about ready to take over the league. He had a good year and good enough to make it as a Pro Bowl alternate, but I was disappointed, especially at the end of the year, one catch and all that. I think, and maybe disappointed not just with him, but how they used him.
Yep. So. Amber.
I would say the running game. I would say Ezekiel Elliott and the combination with Tony Pollard, because you know what you got with Dak. You know what, or you think you know what kind of player he is at this point of his career. And then the O-line, you know what you got there too. And the struggles that, here Tyron Smith out again, and now you got to plug in another guy. So you kind of know the deal with that area. But then the running game, and I know they struggle even in past years and all that, but I expected a lot more. And I know Zeke was dealing with an injury, and I mean, I salute him for always being there and going at it. But at the same time, I really expected a lot more from the running game, and the Cowboys trying to utilize even Tony Pollard, throwing him into the mix at times that maybe Zeke needed a little bit more rest, even if you had him playing a whole game, all that. But anyways, running game. That was the biggest disappointment.
Mine actually goes along with yours, Amber, but I'm going to say the offensive line. I think the biggest problem with the running game was the offensive line. Mm-hmm. I think those running backs were capable enough. I think that what we saw a lot this year is as soon as they were getting the ball, before they could even get to the line of scrimmage, they were getting hit. There weren't holes being made. Dak was running for his life quite a bit this year, especially in the second half of the season. And it's really disappointing because for a long time here in Dallas, we have had the luxury of not really worrying about this offensive line other than injuries. When you're healthy, you're like, oh, everything's going to be fine once they're healthy. This year, by the time you got to the point where you had Tyron back, Lyle was in there, you had Zach Martin in there. I don't care what else you had at guard and center. Typically, when you got your lineup in there, when you got your starters in Dallas, we've been used to for the last, I don't know how many years we've been used to, once you get your guys, you should be okay. And that was not the case in that playoff game. They got beat up. The offensive line got beat up in that game, and that's when I came to the realization that I really think, for me, the biggest challenge they have this offseason is figuring out how they can remake this offensive line. Because without the offensive line playing at a good clip, like playing really well, everything else will fall apart. And so I think that's their biggest problem. So for me, that was the biggest disappointment for this year. All right, before we end the show, let's quickly get to the last question. What was the biggest surprise of the season?
For me, Diggs. I mean, I thought he was going to be a good player. I didn't think he was going to be like that. I think I was surprised about the way he was able to play just at an elite level like that, and to be a ball hawk and take the ball away at that clip. I mean, that was amazing.
To me, it was Dan Quinn. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist or anything, but
I remember our conversation about this.
After my years of working here, I've gotten to become more of like, I'll believe it when I see it type of person. And when it comes to the Cowboys, but the fact that Dan Quinn came in here and I had read about his resume and I heard everybody talking about him and how great he is with players and everything. So to me, that was the biggest surprise in the fact that he did what it was said he could do, and he did it well.
Yeah. For me, it was Jaron Kearse. We talked about him earlier, but I think last year I remember at OTAs they were talking about he was getting a lot of looks, and I was like, "What? Why? Is it just everybody's hurt? Like, what? Why is he out there?" And because I was like, I've never really heard of this guy. And then we went to training camp, and he was still getting a lot of opportunities. I'm like, wow, okay, they must think a lot of this guy. And it wasn't until we got to the regular season and started seeing him play that you started seeing the vision of what Dan Quinn had for him and how well he fit that role. And I think that, to me, was a huge surprise. That came out of nowhere for me. I had no idea at the beginning of the year that he would be, in my opinion, one of the top 3-4 defensive players on this team for the season. And that's what he was, I think. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me. All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to be back next Wednesday. We'll talk a little about free agency. We're going to talk about free agency, some of the guys that are up. We're going to talk about some contracts out there that the Cowboys probably will be looking at to decide whether they want to change those contracts or whether they want to maybe get rid of those players. We'll talk about that stuff next week. Till then, for Nick Even and Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!